Hello. Many believe that the main product of this year from Pico is by no means the Pico 4 Ultra virtual reality headset. I generally like the headset, but this thing is what sets Pico apart from all its competitors. These are the smallest 6DoF trackers in the world, and I can confidently say that they are the most affordable and easy to understand. We didn't just try them out in VR games. We studied the official documentation and read how Pico envisions their application in the future. It turns out that these trackers are not as simple as they seem at first glance. Now I'll tell you everything. For those who are out of the loop, what are these things anyway? Let me explain. By default, in VR, the position of your head is tracked through the headset, and the position of your hands is tracked by the controllers you hold. This is what you have full control over in the VR space. Virtual legs, and everything else from the virtual world live their own life according to the animations set by the developers. If you want to control your legs, elbows, waist, and other parts of your virtual self, then additional devices in the form of trackers are needed. They are used to link the position of a real object to the position of an object in virtual reality. It is commonly believed that all these tracking gimmicks are only needed by furries in VR chat to take another look at themselves in the mirror and show off in front of other VR chatters. But no, it's not that simple. For example, Vive trackers are used for astronaut training. Just this April, an article was published about how astronauts train in VR. The photo speaks for itself. The man is wearing Wi-Fi trackers. They can be used in physical therapy. With the help of trackers, medical professionals collect movement data, analyze it, and track the patient's progress. Some people use them for mock-up systems, meaning they capture the movement of points on a real person or object and later use it for animation in programs like Blender. And right now, this is a top-notch theme for VR arenas with free movement. Most, of course, take the easy route and use the built-in tracking of the headset, but if you want to make it even more precise, you can attach a tracker to your legs or weapon. All these examples mentioned are very old and mostly pertain to Vive trackers. Without a doubt, Vive is the best in its segment because they provide the most accurate tracking, and their price is also the best. Just one Vive Ultimate tracker costs $200, and you need at least two, at least for the legs. The trackers are not as precise, but they offer much more than they cost. Until I opened the technical documentation, I was convinced that they would just be a toy for home. It turns out that you can come up with a lot of interesting things with them. But first, I will talk about entertainment cases for regular people. First and foremost, this includes VR chat and metaverses. In VR chat, there are events, activities, dance lessons, fitness sessions, performances, and even 18+ content. You can participate without trackers, but it will be much more emotional with them. By the way, many VR users write about porn, but for some reason, manufacturers persistently ignore this topic. You're mistaken. I'm being completely serious. Right now, because porn is the driving force behind all industries, not just virtual reality. Maybe someone will come up with a decent body tracking system in a VR canoeing game or some other game. I'm sure everyone will sell their Apple Vision headsets and switch to Pico for something like this. In addition to VR chat, there are other games that support leg tracking. I will explain how it works in practice with Pico Trackers next. If you ever want to start a blog as an avatar, meaning you want to become a YouTuber, then trackers will also be useful for better representing yourself in videos. Now about the theory and what is written in the Pico documentation. These trackers do not necessarily need to be attached to the body. Pico presentation stated that the trackers can be attached to any object. So, the first case is sports games. It can be attached to a table tennis racket, a baseball bat, a bow, or a gun. This was generally obvious. However, the following information is much more interesting for professionals. The Type-C connector of the trackers is capable of receiving and transmitting information. For example, let's take VR arenas that want to add a real weapon mock-up to their game. How is this usually done? There is a plastic piece shaped like a weapon, and you need to insert the controller into it. Moreover, the trigger of the controller is located in the same place where the trigger of the weapon should be. But now with Pico trackers, a controller is not needed. You can place a small tablet like this and link it to a button. When you press the button, the tracker sends information to the headset that the button has been pressed. This can also work in the reverse direction. For example, an event occurs in the game. The tracker understood this information and activates the vibration motors. For example, this capability could be used not only in VR arenas, but also for creating quests. This is, of course, still theoretical, but nonetheless, Pico is writing about it, which means it works. The third case is tracking office tools. Recently, a Logitech stylus for quests was released. but you understand that it was developed in partnership with Meta, and likely a lot of money was invested to incorporate their tracking system into the stylus. Trackers can serve as a standalone tracking system. You just need to create a docking station for the tracker, attach it along with the tracker to the stylus, and connect everything via Type-C to transmit information about the pressure force or the pressing of other buttons. Finally, if you've seen images of VR gloves, they often include Wi-Fi trackers for tracking. However, Wi-Fi trackers are quite bulky, and now Pico offers to replace that large device with a small tablet. I reiterate that all of this is written on paper. Whether anyone will pursue this is a big question. And now to the review. Before discussing the success, Pico had a previous version. I'll mention the name right away because there was some confusion among people. Actually, these are called Pico motion trackers, but everyone refers to them as Pico Trackers too. The first version is called Decay, which stands for Developer Kit. For convenience, we will divide them into first and second. The first trackers worked quite well, especially at a price of 200 yuan. However, they had a number of significant problems. The most critical issue is the lack of game support. In other words, you buy cheap trackers, but you can only play one game, and even that is on a Chinese firmware. The second problem was that the first Pico trackers operated exclusively on EMU sensors. Because of this, over time their tracking would drift, and they had to be recalibrated. The second trackers are tracked not only by the EMU sensor, but also by 12 infrared sensors. Therefore, tracking has become more accurate. They are read by the headset's cameras, and if you pull your leg back and essentially put them in a dead zone, it helps him. As I mentioned, the 2.0 trackers are super compact. They weigh only 27 grams without the strap, yet they work for up to 25 hours without recharging. The main point is that they are not exclusive to the Ultra version. They work with the regular Pico 4 and even with the Pico Neo 3. Here, Pico is certainly impressive for continuing to support older generations, unlike some others. We won't point fingers. The connection is super simple. Just turn on the trackers, open the app, and press bind. The connection happens very quickly. To calibrate, we select our height, stand still for a couple of seconds, and then point the headset directly at our feet. Overall, the entire process takes about a minute or even less. The first application in which we tested the performance of the trackers was obviously the standalone VR chat. But I wish everyone could experience that interesting feeling when you see your virtual legs and they obey you. It's unusual, and it's absolutely impossible to convey emotions through video. The tracking is quite accurate. I moved my legs in different directions, sat on a chair, on the floor, jumped, lay on the floor, and even did the splits. Everything syncs very accurately with my real legs. Once during the session, the Pico trackers reset, but with such quick calibration, reconnecting them is no problem now. You can recalibrate without closing the VR chat even on the Pico 4. In addition to VR chat, the trackers have gained support for other applications. We haven't tested all the games because now, with the new firmware, you have to purchase games. The difference between the global and Chinese firmware is in a couple of applications. The trackers work the same way in both cases. The game Blitz Rhythm remains, which was also available under the first Pico Motion. It's free, but it can only be downloaded on the Chinese firmware. It's not a bad dance game. There are many soundtracks, and you can choose the difficulty level, balls, and environments for each song. I tried all-in-one sports. The developers are definitely bugs. Besides having to buy the game itself, when you enter, the 3 modes that are compatible with the trackers are paid. Kung Fu didn't appeal to me at all. It seems like some kind of Chinese knockoff. The soccer game is decent. Unlike Final Soccer, which I will talk about shortly, the character can move around the field and interact with the team. However, I really enjoyed playing air hockey with my feet. You can play with the trackers, while your opponent, who does not have trackers, can control the puck with their hands. 7 Meters of Football Final Soccer is a really obscure game that has been around since 2016. Well, I don't know, maybe I just don't understand football, but I didn't like it either when I tried it in 2019 with my hands, or now with the trackers. You can either score a goal or, on the contrary, be the goalkeeper. That's basically the whole point of the game. With the trackers, it works just okay. A very strange and unresponsive virtual body. There is a diamond in the vastness of the Chinese firmware. The interface and graphics, of course, look clunky, as if a student made it in one evening, but the concept of the game itself is very interesting. This is a full-fledged replacement for a treadmill. In the first level, you just need to run to the finish line, but then running is combined with shooting. It looks very funny from the outside. I will also talk about the games that I was able to test at the exhibition. They are XR Dance and Tempo Club. I was hesitant to buy them, so I'm sharing from memory. In XR Dance, a virtual coach appears before you, and you repeat the dance moves after them. I don't like dancing, but I think this game will appeal to people who do enjoy dancing. And then there's Tempo Club. It's Beat Saber with legs. It is available on both the Chinese and European firmware. It's also quite a fun game. A person without training will likely get tired after about 10 minutes. There are many more games in the store than I listed, and support will continue to expand in the future. At some point in the future, support for the standalone Blade and Soul 3 Nomad is promised, but when that will be is unknown. To play all these games comfortably, we upgraded all our Pico 4 with super useful accessories. I now regularly use the SteamVR face mask. The mask is a must-have for any Pico user. You definitely need to replace the stock one, otherwise you'll be plagued by headaches. On the regular Pico 4, we have a fantastic mount from Boba VR. Those who use it will confirm that Boba makes top-notch accessories. Unfortunately, this mount is not compatible with the Ultra, but on the new headset, we were able to improve comfort with this cover from Cyber. Later in the review, we will connect the headset to the computer using the Syntax cable with additional charging. Right now, this is the best priced cable that allows the headset to maintain a 100% charge. How do trackers work in SteamVR? Let's go back to VR chat. To connect the trackers to the computer, you just need to go through basic calibration and connect the headset to the PC via Pico. Then in SteamVR, you will see the connected trackers and the setup. Don't pay attention to the number of trackers. You can connect a maximum of 3. The rest is the work of artificial intelligence. Then we open VR chat and go to the trackers section. You will see a movable skeleton that needs to be aligned with the virtual avatar. That's it. It's quite fast. In terms of quality and tracking accuracy, the PC version is slightly inferior to the standalone version. It is noticeable the latency is greater, and it feels a bit less comfortable to move with virtual legs. However, this latency is generally within the normal range. We also tried them in a full clone of VR chat called Chill Out VR. They work there, but I personally like the VR chat platform less than VR chat. The dance game Dance Dash is currently working with the trackers in VR. Everything is good. It is available in standalone mode, so I think you would prefer the native version. The trackers also work in an app for recording yourself against game backgrounds called Leaf. We tried the silly football game Rizzle Index. One do not recommend buying it. And do you know where else trackers work? Nowhere. We tried to connect the trackers with Blender Sorcery and Zenith the Last City, but nothing worked. No one understands what the problem is yet. Ideally, they should be linked to Boon Lab, but the issue is likely that an update was released, and because of that, the mod adding full body tracking is not working. We tried to install the previous version of the game, but with the mod, it just crashes on launch. I think the small number of applications supporting Pico Trackers is temporary. In the future, games will receive updates. At least Boon and Sorcery and Drunken Bar fight, because Pico specifically highlighted them as games that can be played with the trackers. You can connect not 2, but 3 trackers to the headset. However, there are some oddities. First of all, why is the tracker not sold separately? So I need to buy 2 sets of 2 trackers, and one will just be sitting unused. That's strange. Secondly, how do they suggest attaching the tracker to the waist? With this strap. I am, of course, slim, but not that much. We tried to combine 2 straps together, and personally, it worked for me, but this option is only for slim girls. We clarified the issue directly with Pico. They said that a special strap is still in development. It's strange. Is it really that difficult to make and immediately give users the option to buy a 3rd tracker with a strap? Does the 3rd tracker work in any application? Yes, in VR chat, the waist is tracked very well. You can really see on the avatars when you are without a tracker on your waist and when you have one. The butt moves more realistically. Well, that's all for now. Most games designed for trackers are focused on tracking just the 2 legs. Currently, the Pico trackers only support placement on the ankles and waist. However, the Pico SDK builds full body tracking from 24 points. Whether Pico will allow placing trackers not only on the legs and torso in the future is still unclear. I also mentioned that the tracker can be attached to an object, but unfortunately, this is not currently implemented anywhere. In general, announcements are needed from Pico and the developers. For example, the first version of Sunshine apparently supports trackers, but not in the form of full-body tracking. You can connect special guns to it, but we don't have those guns, and Pico trackers do not work with this game. However, if the developers want to, they will make it compatible with Pico trackers. Do you need this device? Let me put it this way. I believe that the greatest advantage of these trackers is their price. Even if you suddenly made an impulsive purchase, thought you needed these trackers, and in the end, they are just sitting on a shelf, losing 5,000 to 6,000 rubles isn't that scary. It's much scarier if you've decided to buy a full set of Vive trackers and they just sit on the shelf. In native games for the trackers, you'll likely spend a maximum of just an hour, and it will feel more like a fitness workout. It's not bad, you just need to think about whether you want this type of fitness in VR chat. As I mentioned, various events take place where trackers can be used. This is actually not such a popular topic right now. There are speaking groups in VR chat that organize events, and they would be happy if you proposed your own idea. For example, you could start conducting yoga classes on this platform for a speaking audience and contribute to its popularization. It's worth noting that the trackers are not compatible with other headsets. You must consciously want to become a Pico user. And if you have a Quest, then sorry, use Slime or Sony Mac Copy. When paired with the Pico 4 Pro, it offers a very advantageous solution for body and face tracking at a reasonable price. The headset itself costs about $500 and adds $60 for the trackers. That's just amazing. I can say that the trackers themselves, as hardware, are fantastic. We need to wait some time for PC games to receive updates and for more native games to gain support. Tell us in the comments what you think about the trackers and whether they have a future. Thank you for watching the video to the end. See you in the future.